Hello, my name is Alejandro Cremaschi. I teach piano at the University of Colorado Boulder. Today I would like to talk to you about the work Preludios Americanos, also known as American Preludes in English, a work by the Argentine composer Alberto Ginastera. This set is a wonderful collection of 12 contrasting short pieces that span the intermediate and advanced levels. Some of them are well known and have been used by teachers for many years since their publication in 1946. They are in some ways ideal teaching pieces. They're short and concentrated, and each of them focuses on a single musical or technical challenge. Their musical language is in some ways similar to works by Bartók or Prokofiev, but unlike those European composers, Ginastera's preludes are inspired by the music, the geography, the character, and the dances of Argentina and the Americas. I would like to read for you a short description that Ginastera himself wrote about these preludes. This, by the way, is my own translation. I composed this work in Buenos Aires in 1944. In it, I tried to create a musical kaleidoscope of melodic and rhythmic motifs similar to those found in the American continent, from primitive pentatonic melodies to contemporary music. They are brief pieces, microforms without development, sonic atmospheres that are presented without further development in the manner of Chopin. I want to clarify that the term Americanos, or American, in the title refers to the whole Americas, that is North, Central, and South America, and it's a term that we commonly use in Spanish with this meaning. First, I'd like to introduce to you Alberto Ginastera. By the way, both pronunciations, Ginastera and Ginastera, are correct. The last name originates from the Catalonia region in northeastern Spain. In Catalan language, the correct pronunciation is Ginastera, but most people in Argentina, like myself, call him Ginastera. Ginastera was born on April 11, 1916 in Buenos Aires. He died in Geneva in 1983. As a teenager studying piano, he had an opportunity to attend a recital by the legendary pianist Arthur Rubinstein in Buenos Aires. Among other pieces, Rubinstein performed Bela Bartók's Allegro Barbaro. Hearing this performance was, quote-unquote, a revelation for Ginastera. It really marked him for the rest of his life. Bartók's piece showed him a path to creating a music that reflected his own Argentine nationality. Ginastera admired Bartók's rhythmic energy, the use of cells and repetition, the percussive element in his writing, and the new type of pianism. A few short years later, Ginastera started composing his own unique and modern-sounding music inspired by the folk music of Argentina. Many of his early pieces, between 1937 and 1944, are inspired by the music of the gaucho. The gaucho was sort of a cowboy, a person who lived in the countryside, rode horses, and took care of the cattle in the Argentine pampas. Since the end of the 19th century, the figure of the gaucho had inspired many artists, writers, and musicians who tried to create a national style in Argentina. In the view of this artist, the gaucho embodied many of the positive national characters of Argentina: honesty, altruism, courage, authenticity, contact with nature. It was really a unique folk symbol for the whole country. In his first piano pieces, Ginastera used many musical elements related to the gaucho and the music of the gaucho. The most obvious one is, of course, the rhythm. Ginastera specifically drew inspiration from 3 gaucho dances, all of them featuring strong rhythm and energy: the chacarera, the gato, and the malambo. These dances are usually written in 6/8, and they feature frequent hemiolas. If you do a search online, you will find these folk dances actually being danced. In addition, Ginastera's music is strongly influenced by the sound of the guitar, which is, by the way, the quintessential instrument of the gaucho. Many of his works often feature fourths, and harmonies built on fourths and fifths, which are borrowed from the open strings of the guitar tuning. For example, the opening of his Malambo, a piano piece that he wrote in the 1940s, features the tuning of the guitar. So these type of chords built on fourths are very, very common in his first 15 years as a composer. In addition to the fourths, Ginastera's music often uses accompaniments that resemble the texture of the guitar. For instance, if you play the beginning of the second Argentine dance, this could have been easily written for the guitar, and in fact it can be played on the guitar. This, by the way, happens also in fast music, not just lyrical music. In addition to these elements, Ginastera made use of elements typical of the 20th century. For example, bitonality, modality, the strong use of dissonances. Sometimes he organizes pitches in something that resembles series or rows. Ginastera wrote the American Preludes in 1944 during a special time in his life. He had met Aaron Copland in Buenos Aires. The American composer actually was visiting Argentina in 1941. Ginastera received the Guggenheim Fellowship to travel to the United States in 1942. He actually had to delay this trip because of World War II and only traveled to the US in 1945. The acquaintance of Copland and the prospect of this international trip probably were factors in some of the stylistic changes that he was undergoing during the first 4 or 5 years of the 1940s. Gradually, he sought to move beyond the overt Argentine nationalism based on the gaucho tradition. He started composing music that sometimes was more abstract, like his duo for flute and oboe, written in 1945. The American Preludes were actually part of this stylistic expansion to embrace the music of the whole American continent. It is true that a few of the preludes are still clearly related to the gaucho music, but others, on the other hand, focus on abstract technical issues like accents and octaves, and others evoke the music of the ancient Inca civilization of South America. 4 of the preludes are tributes to other composers of the Americas, in which Ginastera purposely avoids Argentine folk elements. A few words about the edition of the American Preludes. You may be surprised to hear that they were published by an American publisher, Carl Fischer Publishing, in 1946. In fact, Fischer actively sought to engage Latin American composers to publish their works. Ginastera was invited to send a manuscript in early 1945. He chose to send the newly composed American Preludes, which had been premiered a few months earlier in Buenos Aires. The people at Fischer actually liked the work and published it in early 1946, at the time when Ginastera was actually visiting the United States. So he had a chance to see that publication right away. In 1946, the 1946 edition, by the way, was in use until 2016. So in 2016, I was invited by Fischer to create a revised edition of the American Preludes. The new 2016 edition contains a few changes and correction and a substantial preface with stylistic information and pedagogical suggestions. It also contains my fingering and pedal suggestions. And this is what it looks like. It actually contains a recording that I made of the preludes. So to create this new edition, I consulted, of course, the original 1946 edition and 2 manuscripts that are held in the Paul Sacher archives in Basel, Switzerland. I also consulted internal communications within Fisher Publishing around the time of the publication. So the most important change you will find in the 2016 edition is the reversal of the order of the first two preludes. The 1946 edition, Accent is prelude number 1 and Triste is prelude number 2. In the 2016 edition, Triste becomes number 1 and Accent becomes number 2. This order, by the way, follows the original intentions of Ginastera. You can actually see this order in the table of contents of the final manuscript that he sent Fisher in 1946, and also in some concert programs of the time, including the Buenos Aires premiere and a couple of other concerts that happened in the US when Ginastera was visiting this country in 1946. So digging a little bit deeper, I found an internal memo in Fisher Publishing that clearly indicates that the decision to change the order was done internally by someone in the engraving department simply because there was an awkward page turn. And this is quite unbelievable. So it's unclear if the 29-year-old Ginastera actually approved this change. He obviously was aware of it because he got that first edition, but it was all said and done. I do believe, however, that Ginastera's original intentions have to be respected. This final manuscript was final, and it was actually deposited at the Copyright Office in Argentina, so he intended this to be the final work. In addition, it's not uncommon to see Ginastera opting for slow first movement in several of his pieces. Okay? So it's not uncommon to see this. I do think that the set works even better if you start with the slow and intimate Triste and then follow with the extrovert and loud accents. I will now discuss and show recordings of these preludes. The performances that you will see were previously recorded at Grusin Hall at the University of Colorado Boulder during a live concert, this very same hall actually. So prelude number 1, Triste, is an intermediate level piece. It's a slow and sad song genre from the Pampas. It's written in 2-voice counterpoints with very sparse writing, which actually makes it challenging because you have to create music out of just 2 notes that move very slowly. It's an excellent piece to teach phrasing, to teach direction within a slow and quiet context. So this is what the prelude sounds like. Prelude number 2, Para los acentos or accent, is an advanced piece. It's also written mostly in 2 voices, and it features the interval of a fourth and a fifth in a and also seconds, in a very prominent way. The title refers to the technical challenge, the ability to perform accents within a fast context. So there's actually no direct relationship to the nationalism of his earlier pieces. However, there are some musical elements that are common. For example, as I mentioned, the use of fourths and the use of 6/8 rhythms. So the accents in this piece are done by just simply dropping the arm, the thumb. Gravity takes care of the accents. So there's no need to put any extra with the finger. Each group should be done with one arm gesture. So it's a great prelude to teach the use of coordinated forearm, wrist, and arm motion. A quick note about the pedal. So Ginastera did not write any pedal for pretty much any of his music. I'm not aware of a single piece. Maybe some of his songs have some pedal markings. So he really left it up to the performer. I believe that pedal should be used with caution in Ginastera. It is not uncommon to hear performances that use too much pedal. The issue with using too much pedal is that the rhythm becomes unclear. And that drive, that dryness, that drive, forward drive that is so characteristic of this music is very hard to hear. Therefore, my edition indicates very specific pedaling. You will notice there's a little bit of a gap between the last note of each group and the first note of the next group. So there's a quick lift, which creates a little bit of a gap and makes the accent stand out even more. So this is what this piece sounds like. Prelude number 3, Danza Criolla, Creole dance. I have to clarify that the title criolla, the word criolla, refers to Argentinians of Spanish descent who were born in Argentina. And more specifically, it's another term that we use to refer to people from the countryside or the gauchos. The word is a little confusing because Creole in English means something completely different. So this is really a gaucho dance. The rhythms are related to the chacarera, which is a dance genre from the countryside. And he makes use of the typical black and white disposition of the key, the right hand starting on white, the left hand muddles the sonority by using black keys. So creates a little bit of an accent and dissonance. The rhythm, as I mentioned, is in 6/8, and it features a lot of hemiolas, especially in the left hand. This is a great piece to teach students to manage stamina and also to build climaxes. The piece is organized in phrases of 4 measures and 8 measures, and each of them culminates on the next downbeat. So the student needs to be able to build towards those points. I have to clarify that Ginastera wrote very little dynamics in this piece and other pieces. It doesn't mean that they should be played without. So this forward momentum goes here. Right there. So you're building waves that become bigger and bigger. So this is what this prelude sounds like. By the way, this prelude is one of the popular ones. I've heard high school students who enjoy the loudness and the speed, sometimes a little bit too much. Prelude number 4, Vidala. Vidala is a late intermediate piece. The Vidala is a genre from northwestern Argentina, related in some ways to the music of the indigenous population there. It features a typical melody that's doubled in thirds. This is very typical of some of the folk music of Argentina. So the opening sounds like this. Okay. The other thing that it features is what some musicologists call the bimodal scale. So the ascending and descending. So the descending pattern is actually a Dorian mode, and this is very typical of the northwestern region of Argentina. Of course, Ginastera, being a 20th century composer, doesn't utilize just traditional harmony. He uses his own harmonic language, but some of those elements are very clear. This would be a great piece to teach phrasing, voicing of thirds, and an ear for color, for harmonic color. It's a beautiful piece, it's very colorful, so it has to be done with a lot of care and a lot of listening. So this is what this prelude sounds like. Prelude number 5, it's a piece in 2 voices, written as a canon at the octave. It's purely pentatonic. Every single note of this piece is pentatonic. And it's one of the first ones to appear in the sketches that he had. And this to me is a clear indication of the kind of style that he was seeking. He was looking for a more abstract style, something that was more reminiscent of the ancient American people of South America. Prelude number 6, Homenaje a Roberto García Morillo, or Tribute to Roberto García Morillo. It's an early advanced piece. By far, this is the most popular prelude in the set. I've heard countless performances of this set, and I think it deserves the popularity. It's a very exciting, fast, and showy piece. So it's quite irresistible to high school students, or even to college students. García Morillo was a composer, contemporary of Ginastera. He was Argentinian, actually. Morillo avoided nationalism and wrote in a very intense, expressionistic and modernistic style. There's no clear relationship to nationalism. It is a great piece to teach the use of forearms and wrist to play at a very, very fast tempo. It requires quite a loose wrist. It also is a great piece to teach students to avoid tension and to seek relaxation points in the piece. By far the hardest point of this prelude is the arpeggios in the right hand. They're based on the fourth, as you can hear, and they're supposed to be done with one arm gesture, and they're supposed to be done without interruption, of course. There are different ways in which students can practice this. What I suggest is splitting the thumbs. So that gives them the basic gesture of the arm. The other way is by doing it in groups. And then groups going down. Again, trying to include the gesture of the wrist when playing those notes. Obviously, it has to also be played lightly so that you can do a crescendo towards the top. So this is what this prelude sounds like. We move on now to prelude number 7, para las octavas, or octaves. And this is one of the hardest preludes in the set. It's obviously an advanced level. It's based entirely on fourths. It's done in unisons between both hands with quite a bit of jumping. So the practicing of this piece, this is one of those pieces that you have to keep practicing all your life, and then when you go to the recital stage, just go for it. You will miss a few notes, but that's unimportant, really. The important thing here is the effect. One thing that I would suggest is to practice thumbs. The thumbs act like as a guide to each of the groups. I also practice this in groups of 3. And also grouping towards the next downbeat. And so forth. Also tried practicing in the dark, and that actually was quite helpful. It really helps the arm learn the distances. So this is what this prelude sounds like. Prelude number 8, Homenaje a Juan José Castro, tribute to Juan José Castro. Castro was a respected composer and conductor who actually premiered Ginastera's ballet suite Panambi at the Colón Theater when Ginastera was only 21 years old. So Ginastera owed a lot to Juan José Castro. It's an intermediate or late intermediate piece that contains subtle tango elements. In fact, the tempo marking says, in tempo di tango, in the time of tango. We think that perhaps this is an homage to a work by Castro called Tangos, which Castro had published in 1941. So this is one of the few pieces by Ginastera that actually makes reference to the tango, which is an urban genre which is very different and very distant from the countryside sources that he favored in other pieces. This is a wonderful piece, very lyrical, and it's great for teaching layering. The thumb has a descending chromatic scale. And the pinky has a pedal point. And the right hand obviously has the melody. So this is what this piece sounds like. We now move on to Prelude number 9, Homenaje a Aaron Copland, tribute to Aaron Copland. This is an advanced piece. Copland, of course, another respected composer of the Americas. The fact that Ginastera is writing this homage or this tribute to him implies that Ginastera will not be using any Argentine elements in it. In fact, it sounds very American. It kind of captures the bright and upbeat jazzy elements of pieces like Cat and Mouse by Copland. He still is using some of the elements of the earlier preludes, for example, the use of black and white, the right hand in fourths, the left hand using black keys, and so forth. This is one of the fastest pieces in the set, and it has to be played nimbly and also lightly. It cannot be played heavy because it just goes contrary to the style that he tried to capture from Copland's work. So this would be a great piece to teach students this kind of playing, which is dissonant, bright, loud, but at the same time light and brisk. We move on now to Prelude number 10. Prelude number 10, Pastoral, and Prelude number 11, Tribute to Heitor Villa-Lobos, are sometimes called the Brazilian preludes. Number 10, Pastoral, It's a slow and introspective piece, probably inspired by the open spaces of South America. It uses a syncopated ostinato that to me sounds very Brazilian. Ginastera referred to this prelude and also to number 11 as Brazilian style, according to the musicologist Henley, who was one of the first musicologists to write about Ginastera and to interview Ginastera in person. This particular piece is at the late intermediate level. It would be wonderful to teach voicing and layering, and also sensitivity and nuance. So this is what pastoral sounds like. Prelude number 11, tribute to Heitor Villa-Lobos. Villa-Lobos was another very respected composer from the Americas. His writing was exuberant and dense. Therefore, this prelude captures that perfectly. It is actually, in my opinion, the hardest piece of the set. It's really an advanced piece. It is very chromatic and is based on an 11 notes row, actually. It's not a perfect use of a row in the sense of Schoenberg, but he introduces pitches in a gradual manner, covering 11 notes. At the same time, it uses fourths and seconds, just in harmony with the rest of this set. There's clear layering, just like in the previous prelude, and in fact, some of the sonorities are similar, but obviously very contrasting. The previous was very lyrical, this is very fast and loud. The tempo marking of this prelude is particularly challenging. Personally, I prefer slightly slower tempo, and you will see that in my edition if you buy it. I hear from sources that knew Ginastera that tempos are often suggested markings, so they're not supposed to be taken literally. However, I would say that you have to make an effort to be as close as possible to the tempo that he indicated. So this particular prelude has an ostinato that happens at the bottom, and then on top there's a question and answer, call and response. So the use of fourths. Gradually morphing those fourths into other intervals. And then. So he's kind of gradually morphing the response into different intervals. Again, light on the pedal, If you use too much pedal, it becomes really muddy. I like a little bit of space. So these are pedal taps on each of those. So this prelude, because of the frequent jumps, it features octaves, it's all over the keyboard. It's a prelude that needs to be practiced slowly. It needs to be practiced in groups and also using different rhythms, with dotted rhythms, for example. Okay. So you have to be very creative, and it's one of those preludes that require a lot of work. This is what it sounds like. So we're getting to the end of the set, prelude number 12, en el primer modo pentáfono mayor, or in the first major pentatonic mode. It's an early advanced piece. It's a slow, primitive, processional piece that builds up to a huge, massive climax with a lot of pedal. This is the piece that actually has to, necessitates the use of a pervasive pedal. According to Henley, Ginastera referred to it as a slow Inca processional march, a cortege of the type connected with the worship of the sun. In many ways, because this builds on layers from very soft to very loud, it reminds me a little bit of Debussy's Sunken Cathedral. But of course, this is in the American context, so this is the Inca temple. As opposed to a sunken cathedral. All the chords are based on the pentatonic scale. They feature fourths, and then near the end there's a number of dissonances, minor ninths that possibly resemble or imitate the rough sound of the native erke instrument. This is a wind instrument that's loud and dissonant. So this would be an excellent piece to teach students how to pace sound, how to obtain full sound from the piano, basically playing out of the piano without getting stuck on it, and how to use the pedal in a smart way. This is what this piece sounds like. So we have come to the end of the 12 American Preludes. I think this is a wonderful set. I enjoy performing it. Audiences usually connect to it very well. And it's a wonderful teaching piece because of the concentrated character of each piece and the 20th century language and the connections to the American continent.